po namin Diyos. Maraming salamat po sa buhay at lakas na aming taglay, sa liwanag ng kaisipan at sa pagkakataon maipagpatuloy ang pag-aaral ng mga kabataan. Gabayan mo po ang bawat isa sa amin. Anuman ang bahagi na aming gagampanan, naway maging maayos at matagumpay ang pagtuturo at pag-aaral na aming gagawin sa araw na ito. Patawarin mo po kami sa aming mga pagkulang at pagkakasala. At sa aming paggawa, ikaw po ang aming makasama. Amen.
Good morning, parents, teachers, and learners. Welcome to Valenzuela Live. Today is Week 3, Quarter 3 of Statistics and Probability. Our lesson for today is solving problems involving the mean and variance of a discrete probability distribution. Also, we will have an introduction of the standard normal distribution. Our objectives. First, we have to solve problems involving the mean and variance of probability distribution. Second, we are to interpret the mean and variance of a discrete random variable. Before we go to the lesson, let us first have a review of the last week's discussion. The activity is called Which Formula? You are to react a thumbs up or a heart. Let us start with the first problem. Marian wished to find the average flower arrangements that she delivered this week based on recorded number of orders each day. Which formula is she to use? Is it a thumbs up or a heart? Timer starts now. What's your answer? Did you say a thumbs up? You are correct. In order to find the average, we need to use mean. Let's go to number 2. Daniel went to the grocery store to buy 3-in-1 coffee and noticed that there are 6 brands at different prices. He was thinking how each price varied from the average price of coffee sold repeatedly. Is it thumbs up or a heart? Timer starts now. What's your answer? Did you say heart? Then you are correct. When we are talking about variation or distances between a certain number and an average price, then we will be using variance. Let's go to number 3. Mang Tomas, an owner of a bicycle part shop, asked his staff to record sales for the week. He is given a probability distribution table of sales. Mang Tomas wants to compute standard deviation. Will this be a thumbs up or a heart? Timer begins now. So what is your answer? Did you react heart? Then you are correct. Remember that when we want to find the distance or difference between a sales and its average, then we are going to use standard deviation. Let's have number 4. The number of COVID-19 patients who arrived in the emergency room of a district hospital is presented as a probability distribution table. Nurse scale wants to find the average number of patients per hour. So what formula is she going to use? Is it a thumbs up or a heart? Timer begins now. So your answer is? Yes, it's a thumbs up because the average number of patients per hour can be found by using mu, or the formula summation of x times p of x. Let's have number 5. Mrs. Sitangco, a mathematics teacher, gives a 5-item multiple choice quiz weekly. She then determines the difference in the score of each item from the expected value. Will this be a thumbs up or a heart? Timer begins now. So what's your answer? Is it a heart? Okay, very good. Remember that when we are finding the difference of the score from the expected value or mean, we are to use standard deviation. So what did you get as a score? Did you get 5 out of 5? Then you are now ready to solve and interpret problems. Let's proceed with number 1. The probabilities of a factory machine manufacturing 0, 1, 2 defective parts in a day are 0.90, 0.07, and 0.03 respectively. Let us find the mean and variance. To do so, we need to create a table where we have the first column to be x, the second column will be p of x, and the third column will be the product of x and p of x. When 0 is multiplied to 0.90, then the answer would be 0. When 1 is multiplied to 0.07, then your answer would be 0.07. When 2 is multiplied to 0.03, then you will have a product of 0.06. In order to find the mean, all we need to do is add all the items that are found in column number 3. This is because the formula for the mean is the summation of the product of x times p of x. So, if we add 0 and 0.7 and 0.06, then we will have a mean of 0.13. Did you get that? Let's go now find the variance. To do so, we need to add some more columns to our table. We will have column for x minus the mean. The next column will be the square of x minus the mean. And the last column would be the product of the square of x minus the mean times p of x. So, let's begin with the third column. X minus the mean will be using mean as 0.13 as what we have solved earlier. So, 0 minus 0.13 will give us negative 0.13. Second, 1 minus 0.13 will give us 0.87. The third row will give us 2 minus 0.13, and that would be 1.87. Whatever the results we have for this column, we have to square, so that negative 0.13 squared will give us 0.0169. The square of 0.87 will have a product of 0.7569. And the square of 1.87 will give us 3.4969. Let us now fill in the last column. This is the product of the square of x minus the mean times p of x. So that will be the fourth column times the second column. In doing so, we will have 0.0169 times 0.90. So the product will be 0.01521. For the second row, we have 0.7569 times 0.07. And the product will be 0.05298. The last row will be 3.4969 times 0.03. And the product will be 0.104907. So to find the variance, all we need to do is add the last column. That is, because our formula for variance is the summation of the square of x minus mean times p of x. And using that formula, we will add all the items in the last column and we will get a variance of 0.17. So what does the mean and variance tells us about the problem? A mean of 0.13 implies that on the average, there will be 13 defective parts out of 100 parts produced by the machine. Let's have problem number 2. The owner of a food house asked his staff to record the number of people who orders their specialty on weekdays. The table below shows the probability distribution. Let us now solve for the mean, variance, and standard deviation. Again, we need to have a table to represent this. So the first row would be the weekdays, and P of W will be the probability of each day. Thus, we have, to find the mean, we will use the formula, the summation of W times PW. That is, we need to multiply 1 times 0.13 plus 2 times 0.15 plus 3 times 0.25 plus 4 times 0.19 plus 5 times 0.28. And then we will have a sum of 0.13 plus 0.30 plus 0.75 plus 0.76 plus 1.4 to get a mean of 3.34. So solve for variance. Then we need to use the formula, the summation of W squared times PW minus mean squared. So we will have the following. Of course, the mean of 3.34 will be used as what we have solved earlier. And that is, if we have to follow this formula for the variance, then we will have 1 squared times 0.13 plus 2 squared times 0.15 plus 3 squared times 0.25 plus 4 squared times 0.19 plus 5 squared times 0.28 minus the square of the mean 3.34. Thus, we will have 0.13 plus 0.60 plus 2.25 plus 3.04 plus 7 minus 11.16. Now we have the difference of 13.02 and 11.16 to get a variance of 1.86. Now to solve for standard deviation, all we need to do is take the square root of the variance. That is, standard deviation will now be equal to the square root of 1.86, which is equal to 1.36. Can you follow the solution? Okay? So what does a mean of 3.34 and a standard deviation of 1.36 mean? Notice that an average number of persons who order specialty is 3, as mentioned in mu equals 3.34. And every standard deviation away from the mean is 1.36, which means that there will be a varying number of 1 to 2 persons per weekday who orders their specialty. Can you follow? Okay, let's proceed with the next problem. The table below shows the probability distribution of the number of girls in a family of 3 children in Barangay Kaunlaran. Calculate the mean and standard deviation of the random variable. Notice, in finding how many girls are in the family of 3, first we will have the following. There can be no girl in the family of 3. That is, there are all boys. Or there will be one girl, so that you will have an arrangement of either boy, boy, girl, girl, boy, boy. Also, a possibility that there are 2 girls in the family. So you will have either boy, girl, girl, boy, girl, or girl, boy. And the last probability will be all the 3 children will be girls. And thus, if we write the probability for 0, that will be 1 out of 8. The probability for 1 girl will be 3 out of 8. The probability for 2 girls will be 3 out of 8. And the probability for 3 girls will be 1 out of 8. So in order to solve the mean of this probability distribution, then we need to find the summation of G times B of G. And that is 0 times 1.8 plus 1 times 3.8 plus 2 times 3.8 plus 3 times 1.8. I mean, you have 0 times 1 over 8 plus 1 times 3 over 8 plus 2 times 3 over 8 plus 3 times 1 over 8. So we will have 0 plus 3 over 8 plus 6 over 8 plus 3 over 8. And so the mean would be equal to 12 over 8, or it will be equal to 3 halves, or 1.5. To solve for standard deviation, of course, we need to follow the formula for the variance, which is the summation of the product of G squared times P of G minus U squared. This formula is used when the probability distribution is already given. And thus, we shall now have a mean of 1.5 as we have solved a while ago. Thus, we can now have 0 squared times 1 over 8 plus 1 squared times 3 over 8 plus 2 squared times 3 over 8 plus 3 squared times 1 over 8. And then all of this will be subtracted by the square of 1.5. So if you add the first, you will have 0 plus 3 over 8 plus 12 over 8 plus 9 over 8 minus 2.25. And you will get 3 minus 2.25, so that the variance is equal to 0.75. And so our standard deviation would just be the square root of the variance. And thus, the square root of 0.75 will give us 0.866. So what would be the meaning of a mean of 1.5 and a variance of 0.866? This would imply that the number of girls in a family of 3 children can at least be 1. And that it may vary from 0, meaning there is no girl in the family, or there will be 2 girls per family. So, 1.5 minus 0.866 is equal to 0.634. So since we're talking about girls, then it would be 0. And 1.5 plus 0.866 would be equal to 2.366, which is approximately equal to 2. Okay, so let's now proceed to the next. So what have you learned from solving and interpretation of these problems? Can you now solve problems and then interpret its meaning? Okay, so let's find out by solving problem number 4. The net gain for a day of A and A tea time depends on the number of milk tea sold within a day. If S is the amount of income within a day for 5 consecutive days, compute the mean or expected earnings for a day and the standard deviation. The probability of S is already shown below. So for the mean, we will be using the formula summation of S times P of S. And so we will have 5,000 times 0.20 plus 4,500 times 0.16 plus 4,000 times 0.31 plus 3,500 times 0.17 plus 3,000 times 0.16. And you will get 1,000 plus 720 plus 1,240 plus 595 plus 480. So that the mean will be 4,035. For the variance, we will be using the formula, the summation of S squared times P of S, and then subtract the square of the mean. So this would be a mean of 4,035 plus, you will get 5,000 squared times 0.20 plus the square of 4,500 times 0.16 plus the square of 4,000 times 0.31 plus the square of 3,500 times 0.17 plus the square of 3,000 plus times 0.16, subtract then the square of 4,035. So you will get the following values, and after simplifying this, you will get a variance of 441,275. And thus, the standard deviation would just be the square root of 441,275. And that is, our standard deviation is equal to 664.285 or 285. Okay? Those are big numbers, right? Let's proceed anyway to the interpretation. So, in this probability distribution, a mean equal to 4,035 implies that we can have values from 4,500 to 3,500. The average or expected income per day is 4,035 pesos. Now, a deviation of 664.285 will tell us that the salary of the person per day is from 3,370.72 to 4,699.29 pesos per day. So, let us find out about standard normal distribution. So, standard normal distribution is used when we have continuous random variable. The problems that we had earlier is for discrete random variable. So, if we want to find the probability distribution and its mean and variance, then let's have the standard normal distribution. When random variable is discrete, we can assign probability to each value and obtain its probability distribution. For continuous random variable, we can assume infinitely many values corresponding to points on a line interval, and we must use a different approach for that. And that is to generate the probability distribution for a continuous random variable. So, for a continuous random variable, we are going to use a graphical form of probability distribution. And it is a smooth curve or a bell curve. It is also called a probability density function. So, when a continuous random variable has a bell-shaped probability distribution, it is now known as a normal random variable, and its probability is called a normal distribution. So what will be the characteristics of a normal distribution? First, you have the total area under the curve is 1. A normal distribution curve is unimodal. Third, the curve is symmetrical about the mean. Fourth, the normal distribution is bell-shaped. The fifth one is the distribution curve is asymptotic to the x-axis. And the last characteristic would be the mean, the median, and the mode are equal and they are located at the center of the distribution. So when we have a normal distribution with a mean of 13 and a standard deviation of 3, your bell-shaped curve will look like this, where the center would be 13 and the differences between each step would be 3 deviation. That is, from 13, we add 3, you'll get 16. Add 3 again, that will be 19. Add 3 again, and you'll get 22. For the left side, 13 minus 3 will be 10. 10 minus 3 will be 7. And 7 minus 3 would be 4. So for a standard normal distribution, that mean will become 0. And each deviation would be 1 step away. So that from 0, you will get 1, and then 2, and then 3. And on the left side, you will have negative 1, negative 2, and negative 3. So, generally speaking, if you have a mean for a standard normal distribution, then it will be 0. And on the right, you will have mean plus standard deviation. And then the next would be mean plus 2 times standard deviation. And for the third, you have mean plus 3 times the standard deviation. For the left side, you have mean minus standard deviation. Next would be mean minus 2 times the standard deviation. And the last would be mean minus 3 times standard deviation. The area between the standard normal curve and the horizontal axis between the negative values and the positive values will always be equal to 1. And we call those units z-scores. Z-scores define the position of a score in relation to the mean using the standard deviation as a unit of measurement. They are very useful for comparing data points in different distributions. And z-score is the number of standard deviations by which the score departs from the mean. This standardizes the distribution. Now, the formula for the z-score is z is equal to x minus mu divided by sigma, where x is the data point, mu is the population mean, and sigma is the standard deviation. The probability as the area under the normal curve will be always equal to 1. The curve will be symmetric so that half is above the mean and the other half is below the mean. Look at the illustration below. Notice that mean is at the middle, and then the left side would be x, which is negative infinity to mean, and that is equal to a probability of 0.5. And the right area would be mean to positive infinity, and that probability will also be equal to 0.5. Thus, we say that the total area under this curve will always be equal to 1. So let us now find out what you have learned today. This activity will be called Match Me. All you need to do is match 2 words that are related to one another. These words are mean, z-scores, standard deviation, standard normal curve, the square root of variance, and expected value. So which 2 words do you think are related to one another? I'll give you 10 seconds to guess the first match. Did you get an answer mean and expected value? Okay, correct. Let's have another pair of words. Did you say standard deviation and square root of variance? You are also correct. And of course, the last pair would be z-scores, and standard normal curve. So what does 6 words mean? Let us now make a generalization. A mean is also called expected value. It summarizes the probability distribution of a discrete random variable. Z-score shows the standard normal curve of the random variable. And standard deviation is always the square root of variance. Now, for your question and answer, you can actually jot down all the questions that you have in mind on a piece of paper, and you can ask them to your follow-up discussion teacher tomorrow during your follow-up discussion, either online or by modules. So, speaking of modules, you are going to do page 14, exercises A and B in your self-learning modules on statistics and probability, which is actually quarter 3, lesson 3. That is labeled assessment. This is how it looks like in your module. Okay, you can make a screenshot of it. All right. So, let me leave you with a quotation. Don't be mean, be above average. This has been Maria Lorena y Santiago from Polo National High School saying, stay safe, God bless, and see you around. Have a nice day. Thank you.